Welcome to episode 14 of the Viking Voices podcast. Today I'm joined by Erik Kringlie, who does a lot on campus. We're going to let him dive into that. Erik, thank you for being on the podcast.
You bet. Great to be here.
And before we started, we had a pretty good discussion. We had a few good discussions that could have been the cold open to this podcast, but I'm just going to have to get you to repeat those stories while we go through. But you had some great stories to tell off camera, and obviously we're going to tell them on camera. For the people who don't know you, why don't you just go ahead and introduce yourself? You've been here for 25 years, if I have that correctly. So
I think it's going to be 28 or 29 in March.
Good thing my information's up to date.
Something like that. Yeah, it's a long time anyway. Yeah, so anyway, I'm Erik Kringlie. I'm my title's changed a lot, but I am the Associate Director of Enterprise Systems. Basically, I run the data center is pretty much my job, which is right across the hall from the studio. And so I manage servers and storage and the cooling and protections for those. And then, of course, we've cloudified a lot of apps on campus. So I manage a lot of that kind of stuff. Those are agreements and arrangements and things like that. But yeah, I've been here a long time, been responsible for a lot of things, including video streaming and video recording. So, and I'm a Valley City native. Born and raised here, was a Highliner, graduated from Valley City High School in 1988, played tennis varsity there, and then came right here to VCSU in 89. Fall of 88. 89 was my first year as a varsity Viking tennis player. And actually my mother was the English-Spanish teacher and tennis coach here for, I think she was 30 years, right?
Wow.
30 years before she retired. So, yep. And then my son, Hale, graduated here. We're 3 generations of VCSU grads and folks. So
right on. A lot of ties to this school, a lot of ties to this city. We're gonna get to tennis. I know you're big on tennis. We're gonna get to that in a bit. But your job actually, I last year came on a tour.
Okay.
It was we were doing computer information systems class, and we came on a tour. And you guys got quite the operation over there. And if something goes down, you guys have a pretty heavy job to get that stuff back up.
Yeah, one of the things I also manage is we have a 5-person, 24/7, 365 on-call team. And so that's the other thing that I oversee. And it involves a lot of different things, including not just our systems, but our powerhouse. Those guys rely on a lot of systems that we have so that they can see the boilers and they can see the different. So they're able to call us 24/7. There's stuff over like Sodexo, the freezers and the coolers that we monitor and have stuff. So we have an on-call team that manages all that kind of stuff. But yeah, a lot of the systems, even if they're not even necessarily our systems, they could be cloud-based systems. If those go down, it's my team that's in there and taking the call to get things running. So
yeah, and I actually that's interesting because I didn't know that you guys had that that range of the power plant and in there like literally 20, 30 feet that way to our right now, your left, and then Sodexo. So, you talk about, so obviously you work kind of in the nucleus where all the systems are, all the cloud is, but you're not necessarily the one responding to those issues or on-call problems, but you're kind of delegating those tasks to your team?
I take my 1 week. We rotate weeks, so 5 of us take a week. And so I do take a rotation. I've never stopped that. I kind of like being in the mix. I like, I feel as a leader, you have to also do. And so I like doing that. I've got a great team of people over there, Tony, Tyler, Austin, Brad Mills, Jody Yu. I mean, I've got a great group of people that, and they respond. So we each take a week. We also have holidays. You get 2 holidays a year. I think our thing is just to make sure things stay running. We do have some systems that if they go down could be somewhat critical as far as overheating, those sorts of things. We just put a new big UPS over at the CFA so that some of those systems can stay online. So, we've kind of got to monitor batteries and uptime and things like that. And, I find it fairly rewarding. Sometimes it can be burnout, but it's all right.
So this is a question I didn't think I would ask, but what has been or what was kind of the biggest, oh gosh, this went down, we got to get this up and running. Is there ever been a moment where you're like this is not so good, and how did it play out?
That's a good question. There's been a lot of them. I'd say my biggest one was the flood of '09. It wasn't so much that systems went offline. It was during the 2009 flood, which was catastrophic, obviously, and a huge thing for VCSU. For those who kind of remember that, the floodwaters were right out here. There were no flood walls. And at the time, our data center sat on the ground floor, right, first floor. And the dikes, the temporary dikes they put up were having issues, and the National Guard came in here and gave us 24 hours to get off campus.
Wow.
And we moved up on the hill. We had to physically move every rack and server all the way to the hill. We're lucky that our fiber optics come down the hill from the Regional Tech Center down into the campus. So we just redirected that fiber up there, built a data center in their conference room, and we had most systems up and running within 48 hours. And then our technology service department lived at the Regional Tech Center for the rest of that spring semester and summer. And then we built this room across the hall in '09. Then we got money from the state and FEMA to rebuild our data center and made sure it was up higher. That room's also isolated and it can stand alone from this building. The building can lose power. We have our own generator. We have everything's auto-based, so as long as we can VPN in, we can kind of control the systems. And that all came from the flood of '09. And that was, I jokingly told my boss, Joe Tykwinski, I said, that was we learned a lot of lessons from that, disaster recovery, those sorts of things. But I said, if it ever happens again, I'm done. I'm just going to walk out the door.
Because that would be a lot, and I'm no tech wizard or anything. And, I just turn my laptop on, turn it off. That's about my extent. Charge my phone in the morning, at night, whatever. And that must take some serious problem solving, serious physical labor to be able to, you can, the electricity and like all that, and this might not sound smart coming from me, but just like all those moving parts is just so much more difficult when it's technology and servers, and certainly a lot more thinking has to go into that than just moving some bricks or whatnot. Or
it involves so much from networking to power to cooling. You got to keep everything cool. Because if it gets hot, it's going to shut down. You can actually have fires. Our fire system over there is very high end. It's a gas-based system. It has to be checked multiple times a year. Those sorts of things. It's a lot of moving parts, just as you said. And the great thing is we have such a good team, from our networking team to our developers. It's one thing VCSU. Joe Tykwinski he called me in '97 to bring me back to VCSU, and I think Joe saw the vision. If we were going to be a laptop university and we're going to provide technology, making sure that the infrastructure is there to provide it. And Joe built a really good team going back to 1995, 96, 97. He built a really great team, and we still have a really great team. So I think that's such a critical thing. And I always like to say, like, if technology services, if we're doing our job, people don't really notice.
Exactly.
It's not until something goes down or something's not working, then people know who we are. Otherwise, we kind of work in the back end, and it's like we're kind of doing our job, but it's like people don't see us in here at midnight or 2 a.m. or whatever.
That's right.
So, but that's a good thing. I like it that way. So.
Well, I was just in a class, and one of the sayings that was brought up was, if a tree falls in the forest when no one's around, does anyone hear it? It's kind of what you just described there. I'd love to move 30 feet now back to this room.
Okay.
This was your idea. The cameras, the recording studio, having me on here.
Yep.
I said before, I was like, you built this so that schmucks like me could get on and run a podcast. So, what was the vision for you, and how did this idea kind of come into your mind?
You're right on. I'm going to jump way back.
Yeah,
so
please do.
When I graduated from VCSU in '92, I had a general technology degree, but my vision back then was to be a videographer. And obviously the world of video production was a totally different world back then. Very expensive to own equipment, to do things. It wasn't digital. It was all tape-based. So I spent from 92 to almost 90. Well, actually, when Joe called me in 1997, I was working for a video production company in Fargo. And he called me. It was actually at a perfect time because the boss of my business had sold it. And I'm like, yep, be there tomorrow. So my life was all videography and editing, producing, making videos, doing a lot of different things. And I've worked for a lot of clients and doing a lot of high-end video work. So when I came here, I was hired here to do more technology stuff, servers, websites, databases, those sorts of things. But everybody knew I did video. And so it was really hard to not, when people say, hey, could you record this, or could you edit a video, or hey, could you do a highlight tape, or could you whatever. And so Joe kind of saw, even though it has never been in my job description, I kind of kept getting roped into things. And when the whole world of streaming started happening, one of my first ideas actually came, I think it was Micah Boudreau, who was a quarterback for Viking football, I don't know what year. Corey Anderson, remember, his parents were from up in Alaska. Well, they wanted to listen to the games. And so I came up with the idea, well, let's take the KOVC broadcast, plug it into our servers, and stream it over a web page so they could listen to it anywhere. They wouldn't have to be within 1490 range. So that was some of the first streaming we did. Well, pretty soon that morphed into, could we stream graduation? Could we stream some of these other events? Big meetings, presidents being inaugurated, could we stream these things? And it just kind of built and built and built, and it kind of got a life of its own. And it was great, but on the other hand, it was never been in my job description. And it's kind of always been outside my purview, although my passion for video has always been there, and I love it. And, of course, the whole podcasting world, I think, for you as students, it's where things are at. YouTube, any platform, social platform, videoing and podcasting, I think, is huge. So the vision was, can we hire somebody to do this? Can we bring somebody in, and can we build a studio? Because that was the other thing. We've never had a studio before, and I'm like, well, every time we do these things, we got to tear apart a classroom, or we've got to move equipment, or we've got to whatever. Could we have an edit bay, with dedicated systems to edit? Could we have the lights all are fixed, the backdrops are fixed? And you kind of jokingly said, did I ever think that people like you would be doing this? And it's like, no, this is what I want. I want students excited about doing this kind of stuff, and I want you guys to come in, and I want you to learn to not just do what you're doing, but do what Alyssa's sitting over here doing, and switching it live, and working the mics, and working the cameras, and doing those sorts of things, because it's great experience.
Right.
I mean, it's very applicable today to what you're going to do in the future. So
That's right. Well, everything's online now. It's hard to find a school that doesn't stream their sports, and streams are getting better. There's multiple camera angles. There's multiple this. And then obviously the content creation. I don't know, podcasts now, 5 years ago, you couldn't even imagine. Now the podcasts, they're throwing their sponsorship on the tables, and it's a lot of just, production value. And certainly this room gives the opportunity for, students. And I know they had the Beyond the Bubble podcast. I believe a few episodes were here. Some of them might have been in the bubble. Not quite sure.
Yeah, they started here. I don't know where they've continued.
Yeah.
Since Mark Potts kind of took over this, which is great, and I was so happy. And I'm obviously, if Mark or you or anybody needs me, I'm here for assistance. But the more podcasts, the better.
Yeah.
I'm going to do a shout out to Al Lefebvre. I've always wanted to do like a monthly or whatever he's willing to do, sit Al Lefebvre down on a monthly basis and get him to do a state of the university. He's great on the camera anyway.
Yes.
But I think that would be great too. I'd like to see some sort of academic thing where somebody can sit down and talk about what's happening in our academic programs. That would be great. I've been thinking about doing a technology one where we just talk about tips and hints on how to do things. I think that'd be great too. So I think there's a big realm that we could cover, and we've got the facility now to do it. I'm 100% behind it. I think it's fantastic. So.
Well, I think those are fantastic ideas. I know we had the president on one of the episodes. I believe it was the first episode in the new year, and great interview, and great speaker. He certainly has stories, and
he just too. I mean, he knows what's going on at the state legislature. Right. He knows what's going on at other campuses, and he's got a lot of that knowledge that just to be. I love talking to him because he'll but a lot of that, if we could capture that and send that out, I think that would be great.
That's right. Well, we put it into the universe. It's now up to. We need to find more hosts.
Yeah, there you go. I do agree. I agree with that too, 100%.
And it's such a, it's one of those things, and a lot of people don't know we have this. It is kind of tucked away. It is kind of. I know I came here it was like a promotional interview one time, and I was like, oh, we have this. Yep. We have this thing, and then the first semester, I work on an internship and come into this room, and it was literally the podcast was just born out of. We should try this.
I think
it was one of those things.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be this whole, what did we get here 20 minutes ago? We sat down, filled up a couple water bottles, and we're just having a conversation. So it's super easy. And I love those ideas, the technology ones. It doesn't have to be a long format. It's just there's so many things you can do with this kind of thing, and the amount of tools we have behind the camera, and the ability to move the set, and we're taking it, church concert, we just filmed. Just grab it, go, and it's right back in here the next day. So it's super functional, it's super efficient, it's a great operation, and certainly a lot of opportunity in this room.
Well, and I think for students, that's always been my goal. One of the most rewarding things of my job since I've come back here is we hire student workers. And I love that. I love hiring student workers. I love giving them exposure, not just to the technology part, but we've always hired students to run cameras, to record stuff, to stream things. Before I knew Mark was taking this over, I was trying to recruit Alyssa to come into this, which worked out the way it was. But I think the opportunities to give the students the ability to come in here and use this equipment, to have their creative thoughts like yours to, hey, I want to do a podcast. Absolutely. Figure it out, work it out. That's what I want. This isn't here for me. This is here for our students to learn and use and do. So let's have at it.
Right. And this is, now how old would this be? Because I believe, is it a newer kind of operate? I mean, you probably keep adding to it year by year, but when was this kind of like, this is the broadcast studio now, and moving forward, we're just going to continue to add to it?
I'm trying to remember. I'm going to pull a Corey Anderson here. I've been here so long, things blend together. I think we're close to like year 2 here.
Okay.
I think, and I think some of that was COVID too, because when we came back from COVID, they weren't really using this classroom. I know they were using it a little bit, and that was kind of where my idea was born. I'm like, well, geez, it'd be nice if this would be a perfect little studio.
Right.
And that's kind of where that idea was born. But yeah, that's probably about not quite 2 years. So.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, it's good for you. It's right across from your office, and yeah, it's. We could talk, like, this is just, it's a cool idea. And, you wonder how many people have the opportunity to have something like this. Probably not a lot.
Yep.
And it's certainly something that, I'm glad I discovered this room, because, you never know if, you want to sit down and have a conversation every week with someone new. So obviously you start this up. Is there any equipment you're looking to add to this setup, or for right now, are you pretty happy with the product?
I was really lucky, and again, I don't really deal with the budgets, but Joe Tykwinski, my boss, through Technology Services, we funded pretty much all of this stuff, and he kind of let me do a laundry list, a wish list of stuff initially to get it off the ground. The lights, the studio cameras, the cameras that go out in the field. And so it was a little bit of a dream. Like, I couldn't believe it's like, yeah, this is great stuff. So right now, and again, this is more on Mark Potts, but I'm like, whatever you want, or, whatever you need at this point. I think we're pretty well situated.
Yes.
There's going to be some maintenance things. Tripods are going to break, or cameras are going to have issues, or, it's always nice to have latest, greatest gear. But in the sense, we've got the gear to basically broadcast full 4K, across the internet. And we've got a really nice edit suite sitting here with multiple 4K monitors, and and actually I think it's still running another little edit bay sitting over here. And because that was my other goal, I wanted a place where students could come in and edit stuff, and be able to access applications like Final Cut Pro, that they may not be able to do on their own laptop or whatever. So yeah, I think we're situated pretty good. There's some things as far as checkout procedures we should probably work on. It'd be nice to have some different backdrops, just to change it up a little bit.
Right.
But yeah, and some more lights. You can never have enough lighting and those sorts of things. But yeah, I can dream of some big stuff, but no, I think we're pretty well kitted out right now.
Yeah, and you mentioned, programs on the computer too. It's just like, you're not editing with iMovie or some app from your phone that, can only make so many cuts, but that's what we had the podcast on. And even though it's a simple project to edit, we're not making multiple cuts and adding in effects.
Yep.
It's still nice to have that software where it's like, it's clean, it's done well, it looks good, and it's super easy, for even just someone like me who has almost zero technology knowledge to just go on there and, put something quick together.
Well, and I've seen some of the stuff, like Alyssa's edited some pretty cool videos since she's been here. And the knowledge, the ability to learn to do those like short little promo clips, add some music,
right.
Do maybe not a lot of effects, but add a few effects and be able to publish them, out to different platforms. That knowledge alone is so valuable to students. To be able to know how to do that kind of stuff is a huge thing when you're going out into the, it doesn't matter what job you're going into. If an employer knows you're capable of producing some videos and promotional materials, that's a pretty good skill to have.
Absolutely. And it's becoming increasingly more and more valuable. You're seeing even remote work of just put stuff together for us. And I'm sure you've probably been approached with stuff where just like, hey, can you put this together? And, a lot of people are just taking those almost freelance opportunities of like, I'll edit anything because I have the skills. Why not?
Exactly. Well, and even the skills to get in front of a camera and talk on a microphone. And I know a lot of people, and you brought it up a few minutes ago, it's just a conversation.
Right.
I mean, you're just, there's a mic sitting in front of you and there's some lights on. It's just a conversation, just enjoy it, relax, whatever. It makes
Exactly.
it fun, actually.
Absolutely. And I know a lot of people that probably wouldn't, that didn't want to be on the podcast for this reason. And of course, you're not going to be like, well, come on. Like,
Yeah.
it's one of those things though, where it's like, it's good to get out of your comfort zone. And certainly I have no problem talking. People that know me will know that I have no problem talking, camera or not. So this is a pretty easy endeavor for me to just
But it's
sit
a good
down and
comfort
talk.
zone to get into.
Yeah,
I mean, because the
exactly.
minute you've done it once, you're like, oh, it's not like you're facing the camera and having to recite a speech.
Right.
You're just sitting with somebody else and having a conversation.
It's true.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I remember, second episode, you kind of get into things and you're a little nervous and, you don't want to slip up. But I've slipped up enough to where the people don't expect much, right?
No.
They just expect some quality conversation and,
Even
some
the
good
pros
stories.
slip up. So.
Yeah, exactly, right? And if you talked about it, no one should know I'm here. If you're telling the stories,
Yeah.
I'm just going to, you tell the
Yep.
stories, I'm going to sit back and relax and ask the questions.
Yep.
So, this is incredible room, incredible idea, and super thankful to have it, and super fortunate to have it on our campus here at VCSU. I want to switch it up a little bit, kind of a 180 here.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about tennis briefly. We're going to get into that. You were the head coach of the tennis club. You still are.
Yep.
But you were talking about how tennis was a varsity sport when you were here.
Yep.
Let's start with your tennis career, and then we'll move on to kind of your time coaching here at VCSU.
Sure. Tennis has been in my family my whole life. Grew up on the tennis courts. I think I've played since I was 4 years old, and my mom was the Highliner coach at the time of the women, and then she moved over here to VCSU, and then I played Highliner sports. I was played Highliner varsity, my whole career. Graduated in 1988. And I don't know, sometimes this is, I think both my wife and my mother would be embarrassed. I literally only came to college because I wanted to continue playing tennis. There are some people that get a little like, I literally had no goals other than playing tennis.
Right.
And I had a lot of friends that were on the Viking tennis team at the time. And again, we were part of, and Corey referred to this on his podcast, we were part of the NDCAC, the North Dakota Collegiate Athletic Council Conference at the time, which included, you guys brought that up, 2-year Wahpeton.
Mm-hmm.
So we played Wahpeton. Jamestown didn't have a team, but we played Mary, Dickinson, Minot, all those schools. And so I was excited to come and just continue my varsity tennis career. That's all I really wanted to do. I was actually an art major when I started off. Not that I didn't. I'm not saying anything bad against art, because art's great. I just really wanted to keep playing tennis, and I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life until I found computers. And I found computers, and I'm like, okay, this is pretty good. But my art professor told me, he says, yeah, you're really good with computers. You're an okay artist. And so that got me to switch. But, so I started playing, and Corey referred to VCSU was so successful in the NDCAC. So was Viking tennis. There was men's and women's. We mostly traveled together, and competed together. So we'd make swings out to Dickinson and Minot and Mary. They would come out here to Valley City and play. And we won a lot of conference titles. My freshman year, we won the conference title as a team. My sophomore year, I won an individual conference title with my doubles partner. And previous to that, I think the men's team had won the conference title 3 or 4 years in a row. So we were very successful. Tennis was a big thing. My uncle Jerry, who coached basketball here, was also a tennis coach. My uncle Jerry Kringlie was, I think, the last Viking tennis team to go all the way to nationals as far as a varsity program. Very successful. Obviously cut the team in 93, a year after I left. There's some jokes there too, but that I was gone, so why do they need a team? But tennis has always been a part of my life, going way back because of my mom. My mom was my college tennis coach, which was great. My sister played. My sister went to a 2-year school and then came here for her last 2 years and played varsity tennis as well. I left VCSU for a while, but then I came back in 97. But one of the things I was doing when I came back in 97 was I got asked to be the head coach at the Highliner High School boys team. And that was great. It was a great experience. It was my first time ever, beyond running like summer rec tennis, I'd never actually coached an official team. And so that was kind of new for me and a great experience. One of the best experiences I think I've ever done. But what happened at the same time is as my teams, high school teams, started graduating, a bunch of them came here to VCSU. And I was sitting in my office one day and I had about 5 or 6 of them come in. Matt Nielsen, for people who know, who's the current high school boys and girls coach, head coach. I'm the assistant. But he was actually part of that group that came to me and said, we're on campus. We want to play tennis. What can we do? And I went and talked to the AD at the time, which I don't know if that was Doug Peters, Pomeroy, I'm not sure who that was. And I said, what are our chances? And he said, well, yeah, the whole conference would have to adopt it. Probably not going to happen. And so then I formed a club. In the initial first years, I just called any school that would play us. And we had both men's and women's. I had 6 women and like 8 guys on the first team, 2002 or something like that. And so we played Concordia, we played Moorhead, we went out to UMary. UMary came to us, and it was all, I called those coaches and I said, consider it a non-conference match. We just want to play. And those coaches loved it because a lot of those teams like UMary, most of their matches, they were driving all the way to the cities to play. So like, you mean we can drive 2 hours and play somebody?
Exactly.
They're like, game on, we're doing it. And we had some great players, and so that was great. But then I think it was 2004, the United States Tennis Association, which is the governing body of tennis for the whole United States, and who puts on the big U.S. Open in New York, they are divided into sections, and we're part of the northern section, North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota, and a little bit of Wisconsin. But anyway, the USTA National introduced a program because tennis was being cut nationwide on campuses all over. They started what's called Tennis on Campus. And it basically is to support teams that want to continue to play tennis but need a competitive outlet. They want to play each other. They want to have a sectional. They want to have a national. They want to have that competitive feel. And so that started in, I think, 2004, and we joined up right away. We signed. We're like, yep, game on. We're doing it. And I think like 800 some teams joined nationally the very first year. I mean, you could just see the demand was just there, huge. And so we joined that, and then a great thing about that is there is no lines as far as NCAA, NAIA, Division 1, 2, 3. There's none of those lines. So if you're going to join and be a club tennis team, you're playing the Bison, you're playing the Gophers, you're playing Duke, you're playing UC. I mean, you're going to compete with that same level of team. So for us, we were a little bit on the small end, sure. And but the great thing was because of my coaching at the high school, I had an in to a lot of talented players. The Highliners have produced a lot of great tennis players and continue to produce a lot of great tennis players. And so, my claim to fame is that we've gone to nationals twice, qualified for nationals twice, and we are still to this day, the only NAIA team to make the Tennis on Campus Nationals in Surprise, Arizona. So when we actually went the first time, they did a story on us because we were the smallest school they'd ever seen at nationals. And they did a story, too, on one of our players, Tanner Bushman, who teaches. Oh, he's not teaching the high school anymore. But anyway, he was also an older than average student. I don't know what the political term is for that nowadays, but he was an older than average student at the time. And he's like, you were also the oldest tennis player we've ever had at a national tournament, too. So they interviewed him separately, which he got a kick out of. But it was funny. So COVID hit, unfortunately, and we really just have not gotten organized in a team again. But I want to get back playing. I think it'd be great. It does require 2 men and 2 women at a minimum to have a team because you play together, co-ed kind of style. So I want to get it going again. It's a passion. So
right. Well, super impressive. What year was that when you said you went to nationals twice or just once in the club?
I hate years. So 2012.
Okay.
I believe was the first year. That team was like Katie Paulson, Tanner Bushman, Erica Luchin. Sorry, I'm throwing out names. It's not everybody. And then we went just before COVID to, 2019 maybe.
Oh, 20. Yeah, that's right before.
Yeah, and so that was Claire Olson, Al Olson's daughter, who he teaches on campus for those who know him. Claire Olson, Caitlin Hunter. It was only 4. We only had 4 go that year, but it was the minimum, 2 men and 2 women. Dustin Miller and Dalton Andrasic. And that was probably also, I've had a lot of talented teams, and I don't want to take anything away from the Katie Paulson era. Those 4 were, that was actually the first year we beat the U of M Gophers in the semifinals. And that was the first time they'd ever lost in a sectional match.
Wow.
So that was, that's also from a coaching perspective, Corey Anderson told some coaching stories, and I got a kick out of them. And he was really right. It's not so much about the team; it's about coaching the players. That was the first time coaching. We were down to the mixed doubles match, which I'm not going to get into the whole tennis on campus format. But basically, if you win the mixed doubles at the end, you're pretty much guaranteed you're going to win it all. It came down. We were neck and neck in the mixed doubles match, and it was Dustin Miller and Caitlin Hunter. And on one of the changeovers, we went into a tiebreak even at the very end. And as a coach on the changeover, I couldn't talk to them because I thought I was going to throw up. That's how, because it was such a big deal. Nobody had beaten the Gophers in like 15 years. I looked at Dustin and Caitlin. I turned around. I thought I was going to throw up on the court. That's how nervous as a coach I was.
Wow.
So and then yeah, to beat them, that was. I mean, you've got a VCSU. That's what the Gophers were. It's like, who are you and why are you beating us? Yeah.
Yes.
And so that was just great. That was, and I think those guys, you bring those four back, I think they would say too, it was like crazy moment.
Oh yeah.
So
I bet. And that would have been, you said that was in Arizona that happened? Or was
no, that was
qualified?
sectionals. That year was in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. And we actually did that in a blizzard. We went down in a blizzard and came home in a blizzard. It was like terrible conditions. But yeah, then the Nationals is in Surprise, Arizona. So you go down there and play. The top 64 teams go there. The first time we went to Nationals in 2012 is quite the experience. We didn't know what we were getting into. And you hear these teams called out for matches, and it's like Florida, the Gators, it's Duke, it's UCLA. It's just these crazy names. You're like, holy cow. Out of 64 teams, you compete for 3 full days. We finished 63rd. And we got one win. That's pretty much what that was. We beat some Division III school from Oakland, Ohio, or something, whatever that is. But I mean, we got to win, so we were all happy. The whole team's like, yes, we got to win. That last year we went. I think we finished 32nd.
Wow!
And we beat some pretty big teams.
Well, you have to when you're there.
I think we beat Iowa State. Dustin and Claire might remember better, but yeah, we beat some pretty big teams. So we did really well. So
wow, going up against getting some national recognition, that's really cool. And you talk about those glory years, and you fast forward to today, and you said you haven't quite got it going again after COVID. Talk about the state of this team a little bit. Talk about this is the time for anyone who's listening who may be interested. Because this could be, I don't know if you see, we have a clip every kind of episode on in the Instagram.
Yep.
I would love for this to be the clip of you just telling, everyone out there, if you're interested in tennis, come play for the tennis club.
Actually, if anyone's interested, Alyssa, I'd love to get her playing again, because I coached her in high school. Just talk to me. Just come, ek@vcsu.edu. Email me. Come by my office, Rhodes 211. Just say you want to play tennis. And basically, you need 2 men and 2 women to have a team. It's better to have at least like 4 and 4 because otherwise those 2 men and 2 women are playing all the time, and it's pretty grueling. This way you can kind of sub in and out and stuff like that. And we can actually have an A team, a B team, and a C team. So you could have the max is 5 men and 5 women on a team. And you can have an A team, a B team. So we could have 15, 20 players on a team easily. So yeah, if you're interested in tennis, I'd love to hear about it. And I know we have some people on campus, but it's getting that organized again. And I'm the staff advisor technically, but I can't do everything. We've got to get organized and get going again. And just let me know. I want to hear from you if you want to play tennis on campus.
Well, we're clipping it right there. That's gonna go on the Instagram because 100%. You talk about those glory years, and I hope these people that are interested listen to what you're talking about of going to nationals. There is that opportunity. The amount of places that I've traveled for baseball that we're about to go to Florida for 2.5 weeks.
Yep.
When are you ever getting that opportunity to go with your teammates down, 85 degrees? Oh no, that's so terrible. Same thing with Arizona. Same thing with even that small town in Nebraska. It's just the experience. It's that, and for people that maybe haven't picked up a racket for a few years, it's like this might be the push they need or whatnot. And
I think you hit it really well. The travel part of it, and of course, I was a competitive athlete, and that's part of what I loved. And I told you I came to VCSU mainly to continue being a competitive athlete. That's what I loved. And I loved road trips. I loved traveling places. It was great. tennis on campus, because we're one of few schools in the state of North Dakota, we do have to travel. NDSU and UND are the other two, but we do have to travel to like the cities. We've traveled in our section. We travel to Wisconsin, South Dakota. So we do a lot of road trips. And TOC matches are always on the weekends, so you're not going to miss school for it. That's the one advantage. We usually leave like on a Friday at noon,
Right.
and then we're back by like Sunday night or something. And the road trips are some of the fun of it.
Yep.
I mean, seriously, it builds team. Those are some of the, our road trips. And like you said, going on to like a national tournament, being able to travel like that is just fantastic. And those are experiences you get as a college student that, you are invaluable.
Absolutely.
You just love them. So
Absolutely. You definitely don't remember, and no disrespect to any professors, but you don't remember the class from 30 years ago. You remember the trip to Surprise, Arizona with your teammates, or
yeah.
Florida,
Yep.
or like I said, even that small town, that you know,
Yep.
that joke at the gas station, whatever. It's all the small moments, and obviously you're doing something you love. You're playing tennis or whatever sport you're into, but in this case, tennis. And yeah, I love hearing the stories about that, and hopefully this podcast does something, and maybe some ears perk up, and
Yep.
people pick up their rackets again. Certainly, all it takes is one, right? And you talk
Yep.
about organizing it.
Yep.
All you need is one. It doesn't take a huge push.
if I can get enough players interested, and at that point that gets me going more, knowing that I've got players that want to play.
Right.
And unfortunately, the thing with the club team is we're self-run, so we have to do some fundraising. Other
Every
sports
team,
do.
yeah, absolutely.
And but we do get some grant money usually. And Viking Tennis actually has a fund right now. We were sitting on some money before COVID, so we do have some money sitting in a bank, which is nice. And so we usually provided our in the past. Students didn't pay for travel. I think the only thing they had to pay for were meals. We provided uniforms, and if we went to nationals or went on long trips, all that was covered. So it's not a lot of money out of their pockets. We do stringing; they get stringing for free for their rackets, which we do in the studio here. By the way,
I've seen a few rackets come by.
Yep. So we do. We offer that, so it's not going to be a huge expense to any tennis player. Which is nice. You're not going to have to fund all that travel and stuff
Right.
on your own. So
Certainly, the benefits are certainly, even just college sports in general. Just the benefits are incredible, and the memories and all that. And it's
best
just
4 years of my life.
exactly.
Love playing college sports. Yep.
So moving past a little bit of that, you talked about at the beginning. I said 25 years. You said more 28, 29. Yeah, good to know my information is coming from a reliable source. Talk about some of the other moments just in your time here that just stick out to you. It can be anything. It can be just things that smaller things or sports events you remember. Just anything that sticks out to you in 25 plus years here.
Yeah, wow, there's a lot of stuff. I mean, from a technology standpoint, I'll start there. This campus, I can't say enough about, Joe Tykwinski, my boss, who, by the way, was also my professor when I was here. He wasn't yet the CIO, and he was my advisor. And so he was the one who kind of helped me with, what direction I need to go. And that is fortunate enough that he brought me back here. But from a technology standpoint, we've had VCSU, and we hear this all the time from other campuses, from CTS, the main technology department in the state, that we're always out in front of everybody else. That, you guys need to slow down, sometimes they tell us. But I think that's what's great. And I've been in charge of or involved in a lot of initiatives. Like I installed the first online learning management system back in, I think, 2001, we installed Blackboard for the first time on a server, and we hosted it ourselves locally. It wasn't hosted in the cloud like it is now. That was a huge initiative, and I saw the value of that back then. I mean, students being able to do work online, not having to necessarily always be in a classroom. Although I think that's still our strength is our small class sizes and personal. But the laptop initiative, the things that we've done with the laptops, and I think from a technology standpoint, we've done so many cutting edge things, and it's all for the students. It's all to make the students' life better, make it easier for them, hand them that laptop. We've done nothing but try to streamline all that kind of stuff. Our wireless is across campus. Our network is one of the best in the state. We've always tried to be on that forefront and cutting edge of technology. And the great thing is our professors are too. Our professors want to be there. They're trying to do things that are cutting edge, and I think that's fantastic. And of course, AI is the next initiative that's going to be huge.
Right.
And that changes our life. But doing things like streaming streaming. I mean, we were probably one of the first campuses to do some streaming as far as athletic events and graduations and things like that. And so those are all moments that just stand out to me as far as huge. You know, we've had some catastrophic things like the flood of '09 that just is like imprinted on my brain hard, you know, but on the other hand, if you look back at that, and I think that's what makes our campus strong. I mean, the call to sandbag, those sorts of things, all the athletes showed up, all the students showed up. I mean, this campus, the unity that was there. We've had a lot of great leaders too. I don't want to shortcut that at all. We've had some great leaders and coaches and things like that. So I think from a technology and campus standpoint, it's fantastic. Oh, the stories, I don't know. There's so many stories. It's insane. And some of them I probably can't share on camera. But from an athletic standpoint, you know, I've been around for so many great things: Viking football, Viking baseball, Viking tennis, Viking basketball. My uncle was a coach here for Viking basketball. I think VCSU has such a storied history in athletics. A lot of great athletes. You know, you had Corey Anderson on the podcast. We've had a lot of great athletes. And it's just been fantastic to see that kind of stuff. And I'm obviously a lifelong supporter of Viking athletics, which is fantastic. And so, you know, individual stories, I don't know. It's a lot. It's a lot to remember, that kind of stuff. Obviously, the trips to nationals for us as far as tennis went. My own stories, you know, Viking tennis. You know, we just had such a great time traveling, like you talked about. I'll tell the one story. So my doubles partner, Greg Paymont, who still lives in Jamestown to this day, and we won an individual conference title ourselves. My first day of practice, we both show up as freshmen. And there was one player in high school competitive tennis I hated the most because he was a Jamestown Blue Jay, and it was Greg Paymont. And we both looked at each other at practice that day, and it's like, can't believe I'm looking at who's here. And who do I get paired as a doubles partner? Coach goes, you and Greg, you're out there. And we were doubles partners the rest of our career. And it's still to this day a good friend of mine. And so Corey kind of talked about that. It's like those experiences, you know, you realize that the guy you hated in high school tennis, you're now like, oh, yeah, you're pretty nice. You're a pretty great guy. And not only that, but we really succeeded as a doubles team. And yeah, it's those relationships that you still have to this day that I think, you know, those athletes that I played with, I still stay in touch with and are great players, great athletes, great people. So,
well, I think you said it perfectly. And, you know, about this campus, the story, I think you just, you know, it was perfect what you just said. And I love that. And yeah, I relate to that a lot, you know, being a student here, athlete here. I know a lot of people can probably relate to that. And
Corey said it well. I hate giving Corey Anderson credit, but he said it better than I did in that there's something about this campus. And I can't admit, I can't remember exactly what he said during his interview, but there is something about this campus that's unique, that's better. And I was fortunate that my oldest son, Hale, wanted to come here right away. He didn't, you know, hands down, and he played on my club team. But he will say the same thing. Hale just said, there's something about this campus. It's just fantastic. And it's such an experience that, you know, you want to come back. Alumni, you want to be involved in this campus. And there is just something. Corey said it way better than I did. But yeah, that's what it is.
No, I absolutely agree with you. And yeah, you see that certainly at Alumni Weekend when everyone's coming back. And there's certainly a lot of pride to be a Viking. And yeah, absolutely. I feel the same way. And, you know, just kind of wrapping it up here, this phenomenal conversation. Thank you for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
I hope the clip on the Instagram, you know, drive some traffic your way. Again, this is kind of what we want on the podcast is, you know, bringing light to some things that may not be well known. And like I said before, we were talking about Viking tennis, and, you know, I talked to someone, I'm talking to the Viking tennis club tennis coach today. And, you know, he goes, we have a tennis club. And it's like, exactly. That's what we need. We need to promote these things. And certainly this is the place to do it. And why not? What better than inside the studio that you pretty much built? So, Erik, thank you for being on the podcast today. I really appreciate you taking some time out of your day, telling some stories, and yeah, really appreciate it. Any final words?
No, I'm going to thank you, though, because like you said, and I know we've already touched on it, but I love what you're doing, and if more students wanted to do this, I'd be all for it. It was one of the reasons I wanted to do this, so I'm really excited that you're doing this. So.
Well, I appreciate it, and yeah, hopefully this cold snap goes away. I
Oh.
think we're a couple days to go, and then it's supposed to get warm. But
I'm in Florida in a couple weeks to watch my son play cobber tennis, so I'm not caring. I hope
Yeah.
it's just warm when I get back.
get
so.
on that plane, and you don't have a care in
Yep.
the world. You'll be all good. But yeah, Erik, appreciate you being on here, and that's been episode 14 of the Viking Voices podcast. We say so long.